Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining and welcome to today's webinar on working from home, a bag of technology tricks. My name is Bo Kaston. I'm a product manager at Convena and I'll be your moderator for today. Before we start the presentation, quickly a few housekeeping rules. Throughout the webinar, you will all be in listen-only mode. To ensure a smooth presentation, feel free to type your questions in the questions panel at any time, and we will address your questions at the end of the presentation. We will also be recording the webinar. The recording will be made available at Convena website and shared with you within a few days. Today's session will be presented by Brian Andrews. Brian is an applications specialist at Blackbox based in the UK. Brian has over 10 years of experience dealing with large KVM and Pro AV projects. We are happy that he will share his knowledge with us today. And now I would like to hand over the presentation to Brian. Brian, take it away.
Thank you very much indeed, Bo. Right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can all hear me okay. If anyone does have any problems, put something down into the chat so that we can see that there are issues, but I'll do my best to speak up and not too slowly, but slowly enough that everyone can understand. So today's agenda is why and how to work from home. Then we're going to have a look at some of the options that can be employed to achieve this. So we're going to look at the various remote access software solutions. We'll have a look at some of the network security via VPN solutions. And then we'll look at the advantages of remote access through KVM technology. Then we will wrap it all together and show the complete solutions, and then briefly explain how we can help provide these solutions. So, why and how to work from home? Obviously, the whole world has changed since January the 1st this year, and what with the current health crisis that is a global issue, plus environmental responsibilities, cutting down unnecessary travel, and obviously budget cuts with restrictions on flights and long distance travel, working from home does appear to be a great solution for companies and employees across the globe. I think those of us that have been working from home for a very long time are also beginning to see some advantages of turning up in the office occasionally and seeing human beings. But as a way of keeping us all connected, we do have various options that allow us to really collaborate together and move forward despite all these problems that we're currently undergoing. So obviously one of the first things that we need to have to be able to work from home are the critical infrastructures that are involved. And these are obviously of a major effect on some of the vertical market sectors, such as government, medical, broadcast, and obviously a very big flavour of the month at the moment is education, as we keep taking breaks and extending school holidays and introducing stay-at-home advice from various governments. So there are different types of remote access that are required in these situations, and these tend to fall into two separate levels. So the first level is for the IT administration and maintenance staff. They need to be able to gain access to BIOS level on computers. So if they need to manage their servers or even your desktop or laptop machine at home, and they need to do this remotely, they have to get to BIOS level access, which means they need to be able to see everything the computer does. Now, this cannot be achieved at a software level. Software requires software, and software to run requires a PC to be up and running, its operating system to have been loaded, and the remote access software to be loaded and running. When you want BIOS level access, software cannot help. There is no software solution to give you access to BIOS. So the IT and administration staff need a very different level of access to the usual user level of staff, user level of access. So hardware solutions will provide support for end users, but they will also provide support for the network administration and maintenance staff. And they operate as an edge device. And we'll have a look at some of the options of these later on. The end user just requires software level access. So it is possible for an end user to run a remote desktop environment or another remote access solution based on software. Once the machine is up and running, the software can load in. The user will then have access to all the services that are available through that specific software. So if we start looking at some of these pros and cons, obviously BIOS level, you have full control, as if the PC was sat right in front of you with its own keyboard, monitor and mouse plugged in. And this gives pre-operating system access for support. The downside is that it requires KVM hardware to achieve this. When we're using hardware, we would always recommend that you run over a VPN, and we will cover that in further detail shortly. For software level access, the pros are that it's a very convenient solution. It's easy for the end users to be able to load up. The software can actually be automated upon loading, and they're relatively inexpensive solutions, although some are obviously more expensive than others. The downsides are there is no BIOS level access available through a software solution, and they do require PC client software to be loaded. This can introduce possible security risks. So if we have a look at some of the better known names in the industry for providing these kind of solutions, most of these you will have come across in usual day-to-day business, certainly at least some of them. TeamViewer and Real VNC are quite popular. VNC is actually installed on some of our KVM solutions within the hardware, and it can provide an okay video quality solution at relatively low bandwidths, typically around sort of 32 megabits per second to get a half decent connection through it. And then you've got LogMeIn and Remote PC as other solutions as well. And what these allow you to do is basically extend your desktop as if you were still in the office but operating remotely. They can introduce some delays across the network. Certainly VNC can suffer from mouse lag when we see that being used. TeamViewer tends to be okay. I've not had too much experience with LogMeIn and Remote PC, but the times where I have used them, they've been acceptable. If we look at the pros and cons of each of these, Remote PC is very easy to learn and it's a very inexpensive solution. It's fast and can give you easy file transfers as well, and it works on PC and Mac. But you can't monitor, or we can't display more than one monitor at any one time. TeamViewer is a multi-level security system, so it does provide a lot more security. It also supports multiple operating systems, and you can obviously have online meetings with it in one app. So again, it's quite a convenient solution, and it is relatively inexpensive. Log Me In provides a very clear and simple interface for the users and is driven through a web interface. The Mac version lacks certain features, and the user experience is often reported as being not very intuitive. So whilst it's a clear and simple interface to use and set up, the user experience of it is just not as easy as Remote PC, TeamViewer, and Real VNC. Real VNC is a multi-platform solution. It does provide an intuitive interface, and it is free for personal use. There are no drag and drop file transfer facilities built in, and there's separate host and viewer software required. Alternatively, a lot of customers are moving towards video conferencing software. We have been using video conferencing software for probably about 10 years now. And the four most popular names are obviously Zoom, Cisco WebEx, Click Meeting, and Microsoft Teams. These offer the advantage of face-to-face meetings, which for those of us that have been working at home for quite a long length of time is quite a nice feature to be using these days. We're getting sort of locked down on and off, and it's nice to actually see people and interact with them over a video conferencing solution. So what we're going to do now is just compare these four solutions and see what the pros and cons are. So Click Meeting is very easy to use, and it's great for producing webinars. It is, however, expensive. It uses Adobe Flash, which a lot of people don't like, and does tend to be quite resource extensive. And it's only really available for a limited number of participants. When you start getting into the higher levels of participants, Click Meeting just can't really cope. Microsoft Teams offers the advantage of Microsoft Office integration. So it does integrate into what is commonly used in pretty much every office up and down the country. It's highly customizable. So you've got quite a great deal of flexibility with it. And it's normally included with Office 365 Business. It's very Microsoft centric. Some may consider this to be a con, but it works very, very well. Cisco WebEx, there is a free plan available. There's minimal voice and video lag, and you can produce up to 25 simultaneous video feeds with it, which is quite a good number. But there is only one presenter per license. Finally, Zoom. It's a generous free account that they give you. It's very easy to use with great performance. And there's a lot of features in it for both the hosts and the participants. But there are no toll-free numbers. And the bad news is there are quite a few serious security issues when using the Zoom solution. So you really need to start, if possible, implementing VPNs with it to try and provide better security. So looking at network security, what is a VPN and what is it used for? It's basically a private network that runs across a public network. So the internet is our public network. Most of us have broadband into the homes, and all our offices are all connected up via the internet. A VPN creates a private network on top of the internet, and it's a very secure way of providing communication across a public network which is unsecure. Often this is used with third-party VPN services, and the purpose is basically to give you a secure link across an unsecure network. There are two ways of providing VPN services. One is via hardware, the other is via software. Hardware uses physical devices that provide the features of VPN, such as encryption and de-encryption and authentication across the link. VPN hardware is a virtual private network based on a single standalone device. So every single point of connectivity onto the VPN network will need a piece of hardware that will take care of the encryption and the decryption and the authentication required to join the sessions. So it uses its own dedicated processor, and it offers some additional hardware firewall functionalities. Now, one of the great things with this is it's not going to put any load onto the processor of the computer that you're using, because everything that needs to happen, encryption, de-encryption, authorization, authentication, they happen external to you on the VPN hardware itself. With a software VPN solution, applications are installed and running on the user's devices. On the user's end, there's either a native client that comes pre-installed or a third-party client, and that would be provided by the VPN provider. On the provider's end, the software VPN is on both the client they develop and on the servers that they're going to be using. The software is responsible for handling all the connections between the VPN client and the software. So that means it's handling the authentication to get onto the VPN network and the encryption and de-encryption, which obviously means it's putting extra load onto the video processor. So various software VPNs are available. We've got Norton, Nord, Proton and Express as being probably the four most popular within the industry. And they provide a lower upfront investment than VPN hardware, so they can make scaling the installation much easier and very cost effective. And you can simply add and remove licenses as you need to add or remove users. They can be downloaded and set up in a very short space of time. And they're just as fast as the VPN hardware solutions, but obviously they are adding processing resource onto your existing computer. So if your servers or your computers were already running pretty close to maximum throughput, a software VPN solution is going to begin to slow things down. But they can be the ideal solution for small to medium-sized businesses, and certainly for businesses that are looking for flexibility to expand and, you know, possibly contract again as well, depending on the workload. You may, for instance, get some companies that are particularly, shall we say, Christmas centric. So they would need to grow their networks in the quarter running up till Christmas. Then after Christmas, they may want to scale things back again, just as an example. They are upgradable, very flexible, and easily managed. So typically, we've got our end users sitting at home, connected up to the internet, and they're then running a software VPN client, and this client is responsible for the authentication to get onto the VPN network and for the encryption of the data to send over the network and the de-encryption of the data that's coming back to them. And they will connect through to the central office via a firewall, through the router and into the internal network to contact through to the servers. So the servers will have VPN software on them, the firewall is going to have VPN software on it, and the clients will have VPN software on them. The clients do not need to install anything onto their broadband connection or onto their internet connection. So it's just the end user PCs or devices, the firewall, and the servers themselves that will be responsible for this. So this is just showing If you don't have the VPN software, you won't be able to authenticate through to the firewall, so you won't be given a connection. If you're running the VPN software with the correct authentication set, you will be able to connect onto the firewall and will be passed through to the relevant server that you need to use. So when we compare these solutions, Norton VPN is very affordable. It's a flexible price. It's quite a robust server network, so there shouldn't be too many technical issues, and it is relatively fast. But there are very few server locations for setting up the authentication. Proton has the best free subscription. It's very easy to use, and you can multi-hop VPN to secure locations as well. However, it has fewer servers than most, and it can be expensive for additional features to be added on. So whilst you get a good selection of features for your free subscription, when you want to get into extra features, that's when the costs start mounting up a bit. ExpressVPN has a large distributed number of servers, so they've got plenty of servers for authentication. They have strong privacy and InfoSec practices, so basically it's probably the most secure of all the solutions that's available, and it uses the OpenVPN protocol. The downside for the security is that it is expensive to implement, and it can be quite challenging for inexperienced users to be able to actually connect on and use the system. NordVPN addresses this and provides a very easy to use situation, but it only provides up to 6 simultaneous connections. It is expensive to run, and there are issues with server security. So we can see that there is quite a common theme with the software VPNs, that they're either very expensive to use, they're either not very secure, or they don't have many server locations available across the globe. They do, however, offer a very good price point compared to maybe using a hardware solution. Hardware VPNs are a virtual private network based on standalone devices. So basically, you'll get special routers that support VPNs with inside of them. They come equipped with their own firewall. They run on their own internal processor. There is no software for the clients to have to get heavily involved in at all. We provide a hardware connection from immediately outside the user's computer right the way through to the servers. Everything's hardware based. So no processing load is required by the user. It manages all the VPN functions internally, authentication, encryption, and de-encryption. There are a lot of different devices available. We've only shown 4 on this slide, but there are basically hundreds of pieces of hardware that can provide this. But it is hardware, and therefore there is a cost associated with it. So with the hardware solution, we've got our clients over here running into their LAN switch through to the VPN router. So this is a firewall, a router, and a VPN controller all in one device. And this device will be responsible for setting up the VPN connection through to another VPN router elsewhere in the country or across the globe. This will come down into the client switch and then into the into what we're calling here the bridge clients. So all of the intelligence for setting up the VPN is here. So you can basically join your separate corporate networks together and get a very good user experience. When you're using hardware, it tends to feel like you are just directly connected on the same network. We've chosen 4 devices at random, and we'll just go through a couple of the options. So Linksys offer a relatively inexpensive solution. and they also provide open VPN tunnels for mobile networks. However, the VPN throughput can only be 110 megabits per second, and there's no Wi-Fi access point available on that particular product. The Dell SonicWall TZ300 has advanced IPsec and SSL VPN technology inside it. It does have a Wi-Fi access point built into it as well. However, there's no simultaneous dual band wireless, so it's only going to operate on one band at once, which means all your users need to be on the same band of Wi-Fi network. And it is actually quite an expensive unit to purchase. We've got the Zyxel, the Zywall 110, which is a multi-core CPU, so it's very fast performance, and again has LT2P support for mobile devices, so people can get on remotely from using their phones or their tablets. And it does provide a dual WAN fallback and failover in case that an internet connection should go down. It's able to fall back onto a separate internet connection. It doesn't provide any Wi-Fi, and it is again an expensive solution to put forward. Cisco have got the RV325, which is a dual gigabit Ethernet WAN, so it can provide load balancing and can actually support up to 14 gig of Ethernet. So it's a very, very fast access solution. It does have Wi-Fi built in. However, there is no open VPN, there's no MAC address table in it, and there is no spanning tree support. So it can be a bit limiting as to which networks you can actually put it on. So remote access through KVM technology. Our favorite solution here is the Emerald, which is a zero client based KVM matrix solution that can handle connections not just to direct hardware machines, but also direct connection into the virtual machines that are contained within. It's available in several different flavors these days. We have the standard HD model, and we also have the 4K systems. You will basically take a transmitter and connect it to the server. You then have a receiver station, which is located by the user, and the user plugs in a keyboard, monitor, and mouse into this user station. And all it requires are standard Ethernet switches, depending on the resolutions that you're running at. If you're running HD, we only need 1 gigabit on the network, and typically we will actually only use about 40 meg of bandwidth. If you want to move up to a 4K solution, then we move up to a 10 gig Ethernet network because we require that extra bandwidth for 4K. And therefore, when we come to uplink ports on switches, we tend to use 40, 60 or 100 gig uplinks. The switches typically come with 12, 24, 28, 32 or 48 ports, depending on the size of the site. And these switches can be obviously streamed together with 100 gig uplink ports to provide a very, very large switching fabric as required. Where we're using 10 gig and above, we use QSFP+. On the standard 1 gig networks, we can connect either copper or fiber. If we're running fiber, we use standard SFPs. We can then run the Emerald remote application, which turns any Windows 10 device into a software KVM receiver. So this now means you can connect up to the servers in the office via your phone, if it's Windows 10, or your mobile device, such as a Surface or any laptop running Windows 10. And you won't require any additional hardware at the user end. All we would do is we set up the transmitters onto each of the servers, and then we would run the Bogzilla management platform which handles all the access from the remote apps and puts everything through correctly and handles all the security for you as well. It also provides extra functionality in that it will monitor all the bandwidth utilization, and it actually also allows you to push out firmware updates to all of the endpoints. So all of your users that aren't using Windows 10 devices and that have a user station based at their home or their home office, Bogzilla will basically handle all the connectivity there, log all the bandwidth requirements, show any bandwidth problems, show you any dropped frames, and also allow you to upgrade all the server devices and end hardware all in one go. So we've got the Emerald remote app here running on a Windows 10 device. Moving to the hardware, we have the Emerald 0U transmitter, which is a low-cost version of the Emerald SE. It doesn't take up any rack space, hence why it's called 0U. Basically plugs directly into the server and comes out of an RJ45 IP connection. It only provides audio in one direction, and you can't mount virtual devices such as disk drives or thumb drives and expect as much bandwidth throughput with the 0U. If you want to start adding in scanners and other high-powered devices, or you want bidirectional audio communication, then we look at the Emerald SE. And then above these two, we've got the Emerald PE and the Emerald 4K. So these are the next gen Emeralds. We require 10 gig on the Emerald 4K, but we still only require 1 gig on the Emerald PE. The Emerald PE is currently available with an HDMI interface, but DisplayPort will be coming out soon. So within this scenario, we have a laptop for a home user that's running the Emerald remote app. The remote app is handling all the security and the connectivity and the authentication. So we're connecting through the interface, through the internet, onto the Bogzilla KVM manager. And this will then set up the connection either directly to the user's PC in the office, or through to the server or servers that are located in the server room, or in fact directly onto a virtual machine that is also running on one of the servers within the data center. So putting it all together, over here we've got our user station. This particular user has a keyboard, monitor and mouse plugged into the Emerald receiver. And the Emerald receiver is responsible for setting up via the VPN the connection through to the router. So this is all IP based. Here we have another user that's running a Windows 10 laptop running the remote app. So both of these users are basically connecting through onto the router, onto their local router. So these users are based in the same building, connecting through out to the internet via the same router, via the internet service provider, onto the router that's at the central office. And this VPN is connected and managed through these separate router devices onto the LAN at head office. The connections are managed through Bogzilla, so all of the authentication is handled here. Once you're authenticated, you'll then pass through to the server that you require, and this all happens instantaneously. So you can get directly onto the separate source computers, or indeed onto separate virtual machines also hosted within the data center. So that's how the whole system fits together when using the Emerald hardware solution. A quick view of the Emerald remote app. So basically, you will have a list of targets that you wish to be able to connect to. You'll click on one of these targets, and then the system will take over for you and give you the connectivity that you require. If we now look at a particular use case, what we're looking at here is an editor at a broadcast company that's now working from home. So he's got a multi-monitor workstation that's set up. So he'll maybe be using the Emerald dual head receiver here, coming through to his home router or his small office router, depending where he's based. This router will set up the VPN connection through a broadband connection straight to the office, onto the router there, and then we're into the office network here. So this VPN here, this is a router and firewall together. Once onto the local area network, we're communicating directly with Bogzilla again for all authentication requirements, and then being passed through to the relative Emerald transmitter for the server that we actually wish to connect to. And while this is happening, the Bogzilla is monitoring all of these connections and providing graphs and feedback on the quality of the connection, whether any video frames have been dropped, whether the connection quality drops down at all, how many frames are sent, how many frames are received, how many users are currently connected through the system, what firmware revision everything is running. So it gives you a very good global picture as to exactly what's going on at any second, and can also help, were you to get issues in your network, Bogzilla can actually help you find those issues and get those fixed. So in this case, this user is coming through and is able to choose either the Adobe Premiere Pro server that's running in Windows, or the Autodesk Flame that's running in Linux, and connect through to those as if he were in the office. And the performance he would see on the screens is identical to that he would see in the office. We have tried and tested this solution within the broadcast environment, and the users were just blown away at the fact that that mouse access is completely instantaneous, Wacom tablets, instantaneous response. And these are things that editors really do require. Anyone that's working as a colorist or an editor, they have to feel that everything is directly in front of them, because mouse lag and tablet lag cause immense issues and slow the whole process down of trying to design some content for a client. So with our 40 megabits per second requirement, we're actually able to provide an experience that feels exactly the same as if he was sat in front of the servers. So Bo, if you would like to come on and talk a little bit about the assessment, planning and implementation.
Yes, sir. Whoa.
Okay, I think I'll do the assessment, planning and implementation, and hopefully Bo can maybe do something to get rid of that horrible echo that we're hearing. So Blackbox are able to help you out with the assessment, the planning and the implementation of these solutions. We get more than 500 control room related projects per year. So we help an awful lot of customers achieve their end goals of being able to get remote access to all their servers. And in these troubled times of people unable to get out from their home, or maybe unable to get into the office, maybe the office has been closed, we can help assess all the requirements that are needed, and then we will design a system for you. So we'll help you choose the right components that are for you. We are absolutely technology leaders within the KVM environment. I've been with the company for 32 years now, and we've been dealing with video for about 40 years. So we understand the intricacies of video in the office, video at the home, and video between the two, what the problems are, what the pitfalls are, and how to get over those. We will individually optimize the technology for different users within your network. So some users just require very basic access. Really, they may only need a very short span access onto the network to do not too much. The IT managers require absolutely full access to everything and need to be able to get onto servers very quickly. Power users, they need to feel that the server is under their desk at home, even though it's 300 miles away, sat in the office. So we will optimize everything from an individual aspect, depending on what the user requirements are. So you will always have experienced technicians helping you with the pre-sales planning, and will help you with the project design as well. We obviously provide free post-sales technical support. We always have done for the last 40 years. And in fact, we still provide post-sales technical support on products that we sold 20, 30 years ago. And I do occasionally get calls on them. As long as we have the manuals available, which we do for every product that we've ever sold, we're able to provide support forever. We can also help you with optional installation services. So we can provide maybe hands-on site or telephone support or both, installation services, full commissioning, whatever you require. And we will also set individual SLAs per customer. Okay, let's, Bo, are you in a position to be able to speak about the partnership?
I hope that the echo is fixed, and sorry about that.
That's completely gone from my end, so I think you're good to go.
All right. Okay, so my privilege to put a few words to the Convener Black Box partnership. We started out at the end of 2018, and both Convener and Black Box are located at the same address in Hvidovre, just outside Copenhagen. We are doing business across the EMEA region, so yeah, we are basically able to help you with whatever your needs might be across Europe. Product-wise, we started out with commodity products, also known as run rate products, and we have now expanded to larger projects, and this gives us the opportunity to design and custom solutions to suit your customers' needs, whatever they might be. We keep a lot of items in stock, and we do our best to minimize delivery times. And if an item is available from stock, it's day-to-day delivery. For joint activities, we are doing, we do of course training of Convener sales team. We do joint marketing campaigns, co-visits to existing and new customers, and in relation to resellers, we can of course offer to participate in meetings with end users, train sales staff, or even take part in exhibitions. And if you're working on a larger project, we can offer try and buy terms if your customer needs to try out the solutions. Right. So questions? Yeah. Unfortunately, there are none. So if anything comes to mind, feel free to reach out to Brian, me, or Peter, and we will get back to you with an answer. And thank you for participating. And Brian, good job.
Thank you.